Hello and welcome to my channel. I am going to take you through a day in the life with me, what it is that I do. This is just my morning routine, which includes some skincare. Not recorded would be a little bit of makeup that I did later in the day, just getting ready for the day. Of course, we can't forget to nurture the brain and the body, so a little bit of reading with breakfast always goes well. I am getting my gym outfit set up for the day, always alpha-ly as you can see. I definitely recommend them, and here is my gym outfit for the day. Nothing too serious. I didn't record the full workout because being that this is my first video, I don't want to overwhelm with too much content. I kind of just want to give a little bit of more glimpse into my life, kind of what it is that I do outside of being a fraud investigator and my many interests, which the gym is one of them. So I just recorded the later part of my workout, which is the ab exercise you see here. Definitely will be recording more of those, but as we move along, this is me heading over to my laser way appointment. I have been getting laser treatments now for a couple months, so I will do a video just kind of following up on my experience. Do I recommend it? What my results have been? And yeah, thank you. Hello and welcome to the main reason for this video, which is me just addressing and discussing being a fraud investigator. How did I get into this? What do I do? If you're interested in also becoming a fraud investigator, or if you just wanted some more information, you thought it was interesting, then, here we are. So I'll start by saying, first and foremost, the main reason that I wanted to make this video is because when I started in this industry, I realized that there really wasn't a lot of videos or help online. I did a lot of digging, so I was trying to prepare myself, for the role and just what to do, how to be the best at what I do. I'm, very much someone who likes to do things, to the best of her abilities. And so when I started first working in this industry, specifically not just banking, but in fraud, in the fraud sector, there really wasn't a lot online. And so for me, what was really important was putting out, a video that I would have wanted to find when I was starting this journey and looking for help and looking for guidance and, people who were also in this industry and just trying to get some information. So, I'm working right now. I'm taking one of my breaks, and I figured, what better time to kind of explain what it is that I do while I'm doing it, sort of. So I won't share the details, but I work for one of the major banking companies. I'm sure you've seen them, heard about them. But just for privacy reasons and for, confidentiality, I won't share that information. I will, however, just kind of describe a little bit of what it is that I do and, what you can expect if you're someone who is also looking to get into this industry. So I have educationally, my background is in criminal justice and forensic psychology. So you don't necessarily have to have like a business or banking, history. I think it helps if you're good with numbers, if you're just, you're analytical minded. This is the type of role that I think stimulates me because I'm someone who struggles very, very hard with keeping attention on things. Like I am kind of like, when dogs see a squirrel and then their brain just goes to that other thing. That's me. So, adult ADHD, it's just the way it is for us, I mean, it's more complex than that, obviously, but basically for me, I need something that is very stimulating on a constant, recurring level so that I don't lose interest, because if I lose interest, I'm out, and so I tend to lose interest very quickly. And I need something that stimulates my brain and keeps me, interested. And nothing interests me more than investigating and like, putting things together. And so like, it's like you find patterns and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. And then you start digging. And so this role is great if your mind works that way, if you're someone who needs constant stimulation, because there will never be a day the same like the next. If there's one thing I can confirm is that there's very rarely do you find just, lulls. It's a lot of, up and downs, and mostly ups. So that's the good thing if you like, that if you are interested in a job that's maybe like less, how do I word this? Less, brain focus, like, you could just do things and turn your brain off, like, I don't know, maybe more manual. It probably won't be the best choice for you because you do have to think a lot, and it's not hard in the sense that it's complicated. Like you're not solving, equations. You're not out here like rediscovering and reinventing, formulas. You are simply using the knowledge that from previous positions or from, when you get trained and educated on this particular field. You're taking that and then you are implementing it into your daily job. So if your brain likes that, you'll like it. If you don't like to be like focused on things and you're not good with like noticing little things like that, my brain works like that. So I notice things that are out of place, and I think that's, some of the ups and downs that you get with having a brain like mine. If you have ADHD, sometimes, there's ups and downs, but I would say this would be a good role. So that being said, I did work at a bank, many years ago, not in their fraud department, just like in, teller, cash, regular transactions. So I did have experience. I understood at minimum the basics. So, if you have at minimum the basics, it's really helpful. If you've worked in the banking industry, I think it helps. If you want to get into this industry, if you have like business degree or something like criminal or investigative, it's a plus. It might be a big jump if you're, say, like in the medical field, where it's a little bit different, and then you want to come here. It'll be a bit of a different change, but it's not to say you can't do it. It just might be a bit of a getting used to it at first. Once you do, I think you'll be fine, but it's not for everyone. But when I was looking at the online and looking for videos, I found very limited information online as to what does a fraud investigator do, how do you get into it. A lot of people have gotten into this position by just starting at a bank. So if you don't have the right experience, if you don't know somebody, if you're having trouble getting your foot in the door directly into the fraud department, I would recommend just getting in the door. Start as a teller, customer service, claims department. So because that gives you the basic tools that you need, and I guarantee you it will come in handy. I know it seems annoying when you have to answer phone calls and deal with, maybe upset, members of the bank. However, don't think of it as a waste of time, but think of it as you building your toolkit. So one of the things that I noticed is there's verbiage. Each bank has different verbiage, Chase Bank might call something this way versus US Bank might call it something else, and so it'll be the same thing, but they might use different words for it. So if let's say you really want to work at Wells Fargo, you really want to work there, but you don't, you can't get in, you don't have experience, or, you're having a really hard time, your application keeps getting denied. Start at the very beginning, start with the basics. It's okay. And let me tell you why. Because when you learn the basics, when you learn how to interact with people, you're going to hear a lot of things, okay? Because the first point of contact for customers, members, people in this industry is customer service. So people are going to start telling you things, and you're going to start listening and hearing to a lot of this information, which investigators use on a daily basis, because we see the notes that the representatives leave. We can hear the conversations that were had. So these conversations and these notes, believe it or not, are very, very vital. So if you can't get in directly to the fraud department, start with customer service phone calls. I know it's not for everyone, I know, but just think of the goal. If your ultimate goal is to end up in fraud or in a different department, think of it that way. Don't get discouraged. So that would be my tip, is definitely get in somehow. If you can, if you have a friend that works at a bank, even if they're not in fraud, just get in, because it'll be so much easier to do a lateral transition versus, if you're external. I promise you that. So that's my piece of advice if you don't have experience. I got my position through a contract role, which basically meant I was recruited. So I didn't even know about the position. The recruiter who works at this company for a third-party company saw my resume online and said, hey, this person's got, banking history previously. They've got analytical mindset because of their educational experience. Criminal justice and forensic psychology are very, mental, even judicial, if you could, think about legal stuff, think about what looks like fraud. What is fraud, right? Like, fraud is everything. Fraud, there's, healthcare fraud. So, you're not tied down and limited to where fraud can go. You just have to decide where your focus wants to be. If it's healthcare fraud, if it's even like a public service, people commit fraud with some of the services, Medicare fraud, Social Security, there's so much fraud, unemployment, there's a lot of fraud everywhere, so there's not a lack of where you have a role. It's more or less where you fit in. For me, I really love the banking industry. I love fraud in the banking sector specifically. I think my job is very, very fun. I don't even, I shouldn't say job. This is genuinely a career for me. So I feel very fulfilled and very happy. And so I think if you're, looking to get in, think of where your mind tends to go. Do you like, numbers? Do you like math? Are you okay with like digging and things like that? And that might help you kind of gear where you want to be a fraud investigator, whether it's banking or whether it's, the different types of, governmental services that are offered. So you're not limited. Just kind of consider what type of fraud might be better suited for you, and then use your experience. Maybe you have experience already with healthcare. So maybe you could be, a healthcare investigator, like Medicare fraud or something, healthcare fraud. So that's another avenue to go. I don't have experience in that, so I can't really speak on that. That wouldn't be, my area of expertise. But I will say that there's a lot, you can go many, many ways. So don't get discouraged. There's many avenues. So that is kind of the initial steps, I would say, kind of where to gear your concentration if you're interested in this. Once you get the role, like I said, I got it through a contract. So I was contacted through the recruiter, got hired on. A contract role means it is temporary. However, extensions do happen. Contract got extended, which is amazing. And, sometimes if the company really likes you, like the company you were hired to contract for, they might keep you on. So, that's always a possibility. Even if that doesn't happen, even if the contract is for a year or a few months, if you get that on your resume, that's experience. So now you have more padding for your resume. Even if it's temporary, consider that it's still experience, and consider what your ultimate goal is. So don't worry about the little tiny steps along the way. Consider what the big goal is and where you want to go, what you want to achieve. So even if it's contract, for me, I have no problem with it being contract. I've made it work, and believe me, it'll be a video for another time, but I'm, financially responsible for myself. So I'm very well aware that, there is that issue with people thinking like, oh, I have job security, like I want something more permanent. I completely understand that. But if you are able to kind of maneuver around that, a contract job is wonderful. Personally, I like it, but I know it's not for everyone, so consider those things. My biggest piece of advice outside of how I got it, because I had experience already and I had it on my resume, and I had kind of like a lot of details that kind of were like green check marks, my background, my education, I speak 2 languages, so there's a lot of pluses on my side. However, if you don't have any of those things, or even if you're just brand new, you don't have a lot of working experience, or no one's reaching out to you, or you're reaching out and no one's contacting you back, network. So get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn honestly nowadays feels a little bit like a professional Facebook, and that's not to say that it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all, because I use it. I check on it almost regularly just to make connections, and you never know. You really never know, honestly. So get on LinkedIn. You don't have to necessarily put a picture if you don't want to. That's a personal choice. But put as much information about you. You're there to sell yourself. So sell yourself. You are the product right now. You are selling your services, right? What can I do? Here's what I can do. Maybe you don't have that specific type of experience, but here's what I do have. Or maybe, hey, I have this and it actually does transfer this way. And let me explain why. So you can kind of, get a little into the weeds there if you want, but build up your LinkedIn. I put everything and anything that I can on my LinkedIn. I volunteer at a rescue. I put that on there. It has nothing to do with it, but you never know who you're going to meet, and I want to meet people that are like-minded and care about the things that I care about as well. So I put these things on there because I want to meet, people like that and, expand. I have connections upwards of 2,000 now. I don't know the exact number. I'd have to check, but that's just to give you an idea. It's not necessary to have thousands upon thousands of connections. That's just my personal choice, but I'm building myself online, and in a world where we're so remote and a lot of times disconnected, it's very important. So do that. And you might meet someone who's either in the same boat and you can relate. I met someone who was going through a struggle, and we were kind of talking and we related on a personal level. We were kind of like, yep, she was in a slightly different industry, but it was really nice to kind of have that communication during that time. So connect, just build your resume, make it look nice, professional. Get on LinkedIn, start networking. Even if it leads nowhere, you have a connection. It's not a bad thing. It's never a bad thing. Ask questions. Maybe you can reach out to an investigator. Maybe you can reach someone in that department who works at that bank or who works in the industry you want to work in, and say, hey, really want to get in here. Is there anything you can advise me? Is there, what's your day like? How'd you get started? Reach out. Remember, no one's going to come and just hand you things. Granted, I know the recruiter did reach out to me, so that may seem a little hypocritical, but you still have to work for it. You still have to have something. So don't give up. Definitely reach out and network. Ask questions. I've had people in a different, I had someone who actually worked at Amazon in the investigations department. So kind of investigating, but a little, they were retail. And he reached out to me because he wanted to work in the banking industry. And he was like, hey, what's it like? How'd you get in there? I told him the truth. I was like, you know what? The recruiter actually reached out to me. And I was like, I just wanted to be completely honest. So I told him that. And, I told him, don't get discouraged. Like, you've got experience. Like, you're not just, so you'd be surprised. Like, plenty of people right now are looking for that, like, little just gold mine, so get involved in yourself, in your future, and network, even if it's online. My job is remote. I don't know these people, but I know them, I work with them. So it's not going to be as easy, perhaps, but you got to work with what you got. So, like I always say I'm very thankful for what it is that I do, because not just do I love doing it, but I really enjoy it, and I enjoy all the experience, even if it's temporary. I'm very, very grateful. So, network, reach out, make connections, ask questions. You're not dumb. No one should ever make you feel dumb if you have a question, because everyone started at zero. CEOs, there was a point in time in their life when they were at zero. They were nobodies, you know what I mean? So do not think less of yourself because you don't have experience. Do not think you're not capable. I didn't know this information until I started working here. I didn't know anything about, account takeover and identity theft. I didn't. And now I do. But I wasn't born with that information. I have to, get it and gain it through a means. And so, there's I think, a silver lining in everything, so consider that. So yeah, like those are probably some of the most important things to get started in this industry is networking, network, add people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Try to get into the industry, even if it's indirectly, even if it's starting out. I know that sometimes call centers and places like that can seem a little bit discouraging because not everyone's great on the phone, and they've gotten a bit of a bad rep, but and I've worked at a call center, so you'd be surprised. Get yourself out there. It's not as bad as it seems. You just have to, you have to know what you want at the end of this game that we're all playing. And if you feel okay with, starting, even if it's from like square one, start there. It doesn't have to be forever. I understand that it's not as fun when we have to do things to get somewhere else, when we just want to kind of get there directly. But if that's not possible, it's not the end of the world. There are ways. So get in indirectly, even if you have to start from the bottom, network, build your resume, build up your skills. There are certified fraud examiner certificates you can take. I don't have that. I am looking to get that, however. Maybe this year, we'll see. I'm not really sure. That helps. I know some people have that, and it's sort of like a little extra little lift, if you will. I don't have that, and I still work in this industry, so I don't think it's like if you don't have it, you're never going to come in, anywhere near this. I don't think so. But, if you're looking for just additional things that help, that helps, I don't have like a direct education in fraud. I don't have like a fraud investigator degree from wherever university. I have a criminal justice degree and a forensic psychology bachelor's degree. It's not fraud, but you can see where it all kind of ties in and where it's important. So don't think that your skill set is not directly related, because you'd be surprised. The contract job wanted people who had business, who had criminal justice. So even if it's business, why? Because business a lot of times teaches you thinking, analytical skills, math, It's not a bad thing. Even if you think it's not related, you'd be surprised, What else? Look into it. I would recommend, before you try to get into this world, if this, video is at all helpful, and I'm going to make another video where I talk about an actual day in my life, what it is that I do once I'm here. So what is it like working a case? What type of fraud do you see? What are common things that you see in the job? This video is more for how to kind of get into this industry, and if you have questions, if you're interested, but you don't know if it's for you. So I'll make a follow-up video with actual fraud types, what to expect, what you could, potentially come across once you're actually in it. This video I'm making right now is a little bit more informative as to, hey, I'm new, but I want to get in this. How can I, So I recommend that. Honestly, I feel like those are my biggest tips. There wasn't anything that I did particularly different than what I just recommended. Sometimes it's just keep looking. I cannot stress how many I had, the alert set for Indeed, for LinkedIn, Glassdoor. I was looking every day because I had my mindset that this is what I wanted. And granted, the position came to me, But I don't think it came to me because I was just sitting on top of my hands going, but this is what I want, you know. I was still putting in the work. So don't kind of just tweak it a little bit, your resume, or go online for like, 5 minutes and then be like, oh, I didn't see anything, bye. Do some digging. It might take some time. You might have to go through a few applications, and I know they're not fun to fill out. I get it. But you have to kind of, stick it out a little bit. Don't get discouraged, keep applying. Apply to as many jobs as you can that you feel are a good fit. If you're going and it's like a fraud investigator role that's asking for 8+ years of experience, I don't even have 8+ years. So, you can kind of gauge from there what it is that's a good match for you. Don't apply for like a senior fraud investigator role. You're wasting your time. And that's not to say you never will get there. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm just saying right now, go where you're going to be able to get in smoothly and quickly. There are also positions in fraud that are not like a fraud investigator role per se, but they're more like a fraud, how should I say it? Like a first point of contact. Kind of like, imagine customer service, but that's like your first line of defense. So it's almost like customer service, but it's specifically for fraud. So it's like, the member might call in and say, hey, I've got this, check that I don't recognize. What's going on? When they call the bank for the first time. And then they'll say, oh, you didn't do this. Oh, okay. It shows somebody else was logging into their account maybe. They might then go ahead and transfer you over to the fraud department. And the first line of defense may be fraud representative. So you could even get in there, it's not fraud investigator yet, but you are using investigative skills because you are still asking questions. You are still gathering information. You're just not delving deep into the cases the way that an investigator would. So there are other avenues to take. Don't get discouraged. Do some digging. I know that it's very popular right now to use ChatGPT for a lot of things. Why don't you ask ChatGPT? Say, hey, I really want to become a fraud investigator. I'm interested in a fraud investigator. Can you give me some tips? What are things that I could do to prepare myself better for the role? I know that I wouldn't recommend just going off what ChatGPT says, but I guess it can't really hurt if you want to kind of get a little bit more of a like textbook informative type of description on what fraud is. They'll give you a little bit more of like what you might find on a description of a position itself, but it's good to have an idea. You can kind of give you an idea. It will never be the same as just living it, or if someone who actually does it, it will never be the same. But I recommend going on there too, saying, hey, I have this background, would it be a good fit? A lot of times the positions online will tell you based on your experience and your skills, you're a good fit, or you know what, maybe not so much. That's not a bad thing. It's good because now you're kind of gauging where you fit into the world right now with what you have. That's not forever. So again, good tips to kind of keep in mind. And maybe it's not for you because maybe you think it's going to be a little bit more this way and it's actually a little bit more this way. So, look into it and see, do I have a background? Do I have the type of mindset? Do I have the interest? Maybe your end goal isn't even really in fraud, and maybe you're like, it sounded kind of cool, but it's actually not. And I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of times people think, they hear words like investigator or fraud, and they're like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like FBI. And it's like, no, it's not, okay? It's cool in its own way, and I love it, but you have to be, have to come into an understanding that it's not this glamorized, like CSI type of position, and it's nothing like that at all. But I think a lot of people come into these types of roles that have these like, words or phrases in the title, like fraud investigator, like, analyst, and you're like, oh my gosh, all the stuff I'm going to be doing. And it won't be quite as intense as you think it's going to be. It's not boring though, but it's not this like detective, you know, magnifying glass, like solving mysteries. You are solving cases, you are. And there is a lot of thought that has to go into it. So don't think that it's, you know, it's overkill, but I personally love it. I think it's a great match for me. But like I said, I need a position that keeps me stimulated constantly. And so this is perfect for me because my brain likes to kind of keep thinking. That way I don't lose interest. And nobody wants somebody who's going to be working there and bored, you know? So I think that this is the type of role for me. If you think like me, then it might also be for you. So anywho, I will be making a follow-up video where I go into what my day is actually like just doing fraud. What are the types of fraud that I see? You know, kind of like a case, you know, maybe explain it a little bit. I won't go into too much detail, but I'll try to touch on like most of the fraud types that I see because there's a lot. I mean, it gets wild, okay? But I hope that this video was informative. I know it might be a little bit longer than you expected because I kind of talk a lot, and you'll notice that in my next video probably too. I'm very new to this. I'm not used to being on camera, so I do apologize for the lack of quality you're going to be seeing. This is my first video, but I appreciate you if you stuck out this long. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer and help wherever it is that I can. And just, you know, keep trying. Don't give up. If this is where you want to be, you know, go for it. And I believe in you. And so thank you so much. I hope you liked it, and I will follow up with some more later. Bye.